How's it going, everybody? This is Trady Collins, your host for the Podcast Island, episode number 21. Podcast Island covers sports, music, film, thought-provoking topics, fun topics, and a sit-down interview. This podcast can be viewed only on YouTube at the One Man Island Productions YouTube channel. Clips of the podcast can be viewed on Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts. With me is a returning guest, Daryl Hall. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How you been?
I'm doing wonderful. It's been a while since we did one of these podcasts. It's been very hectic on my end. What about you?
Everything's been okay. A lot of changes on my end too, but can't complain. It's good changes, I'll say that much.
Oh, awesome. Well, if there's anything about, I guess, life is that changes do technically happen at any point in time.
Very true.
And one of the things that so today's topic is pretty much backup plans, and really this could apply to anything, but in this case, it's more like the job field, and since ones that you and I are constantly battling every single day.
Right.
And so the reason why I came up with this topic is because my last job, which was at a marketing firm, we had a team meeting earlier in the day. And I remember one guy who got promoted, he said that one of the things that he did is that he eliminated all outside areas, pretty much no backup plans, and he nosedived, he went full in on the career he wanted, and it benefited him. So the thing he told us about is like never have a backup plan because it prevents you from going full in into the career you wanted to be. Now everybody else was clapping. I kind of in the back was thinking to myself, I mean, that works for you, but for me, I think there's I kind of need to know, I kind of need a netting at the end of at the bottom. I kind of need a parachute. I need something to know that in case plan A doesn't work, I can always have something to fall back on so that, you just don't want to have lack of options. What do you think?
I agree the same with you on that sentiment. It's based on, I guess, what your mindset will be and where you come from with your experiences and why that is, but exact same with you. Gotta have a backup plan. We're not saying that you don't take your time and energy to put that focus into plan A, but never sit there and always put all the eggs in one basket. If people have heard that saying before too, that can go across many areas, just even without job fields. But depending on what you're talking about, no, I wouldn't have that idea. And especially with careers and kind of trying to choose them, depending on what field you're in, you should have a backup plan. You know what I mean? I don't want to lose sports too much or get ahead of anything, but yeah, I'm with you. You got to have a plan B.
It's quite interesting you said it because when I was I was researching, celebrities or anybody who's famous. It doesn't really have to be a Taylor Swift level famous. It could be just any person who has accomplished their goal to whatever degree suits them. And I found a quote by them that I think is very apropos to this discussion. It's by Juliana Margulies. She is an American actress from New York. She received a wide recognition for her starring role as Carol Hathaway in the NBC medical drama ER and ran from 1994 to 2009. She received a Primetime Emmy Award, 6 Screen Actors Guild Awards, in addition to 4 Golden Globe Awards. She had a quote, and it said, I would have gone to law school or gotten a psychology degree. I wasn't interested in sleeping on a futon forever. And what happened is I walked into auditions and I had nothing to lose because I had a backup plan. And this is just her experience because I think I remember reading a story. I think my mom told me this one time that Denzel Washington was living in his car at one point before he got his big break. But listening to this woman speak from her experience, do you think like people just need to have that kind of like, waitress kind of job, maybe overnight shifts at Home Depot or hardware stores or something, and just so that way they can feel more secure in life? Or do you think that they should go in other directions?
I'll say always go for what your passion is or what you believe in. Um, Again, depends on the field.
Right.
In my sentiments, especially when it comes to like when you're running a business, like when you want to start one, I would never tell nobody to quit their regular day job because you need funds for something. You can't just quit unless you have the capital to, the money to. Obviously, live off of that until the business is successful, but you should never leave it until you break even. Basically, you're making more money than what you're making during your regular day hours. That's one way to look at it for certain people. It's hard for me to sit there and, say that of like, and I'm a college graduate, so it's,
Mhm.
you know, I wouldn't sit there and say that coming from worlds where I play sports too, of like, I was one of those kids, I didn't play for long, but it also didn't work out for me in the field I was trying to, go for. So there were other things that I had to be realistic about. Like I didn't play long enough for me to be going to college in any division for me to sit there and have something to think about with that. So again, it's more alluding towards that of like, be mindful about what it is and what you are doing, but in most fields of work or a lot of things you're trying to pursue, like you said, have that backup plan. Sometimes people need that security or one, and it may come down to upbringing. You never know what factors lead into that because you may be coming from a situation where you don't need that small job. Some of us do. While I was in school, and same with you, even while being an athlete, we had to work. You know what I mean? It
Right.
wasn't something that we didn't have free summers.
Mm.
I remember when we were working together that summer, you would be
Yeah.
still going to practice in the morning and we got to be to work at 8:30. It was nothing we could really sit there and do to just ignore it. Like some people's situations, you have to do both. So that's why I said it's hard to say if you can be okay with it or just like you don't have that many responsibilities to where
Mm.
you can go all in. It does make it a little bit easier for you to be able to have that type of thought process to see it through because some people don't always have that.
Yeah, and it's mentioned the thing about all because you mentioned sports, because I have another like situation because it involves a professional athlete who's a lot of people in the professional world think he thinks he's on his way out, but I'm just gonna bring this man up in general because I was watching the Amazon Prime documentary on Jason Kelsey. He's a center for the Philadelphia Eagles. His
Right.
brother, Travis Kelsey, dates Taylor Swift. That's no surprise to anybody. But during the documentary, he was talking about so this was happening during the 2022 season, so a year ago. And he was thinking about
Yeah.
retirement and wondering what to do because part of him was nervous about the reality of like not playing football. And then
Hmm.
he eventually started his famous podcast called New Heights with his brother that caught fire, has about at least about 3 million subscribers. They're monetized, they got ads coming in. And so the more the story is you have a 300-pound 35-year-old center from Philadelphia who at one point didn't really know what he wanted to do after football. He has a side hustle and now he pretty much knows what he wants to do afterwards. He's going to be in broadcasting. I mean, podcasting won't be forever for him. He's charismatic, he's likable, he has a likable family. He's from a very hardworking city, Philadelphia. And so I guess the question is for this one, do you think people, regardless if they're in the profession they want to or have yet to get there, should have a side hustle, like something to at least like it could be a hobby or it could be something you do for money, at least have a side hustle.
Again, when I alluded even back to regular people, you own a business, or like even if you have a regular day job, you have the means and the time to, yeah, it's okay to have one. But you got to have that plan leaving out, especially when it goes to
Right.
sports, because it's, I was listening to a certain podcast earlier, like Gil's Arena, and they were all speaking to that being former athletes. And when they leave the game, they got to have something to fill the time and competitive edge because they were so used to having a set schedule that's basically been there since some of them been teenagers or kids, depending on when you came into play. When you're
Hmm.
so used to having this be a part of your world, and that's how things been going for so long, and it's a drastic change now. They got to fill a void. If you don't take the time to have those good things there, that some of them may have started, like himself, where today's lane they have that option to start that before their career ends. Everybody didn't always have that back in the day, and just having that good foundation and being there. He's even had to make pivots in his career. A lot of people don't know when he was at University of Cincinnati, he was supposed to be a tight end like his brother. He couldn't get on the team because the position was filled. So it was like, you want to do center. So he gained a
Right.
bunch of weight, put it on his body to kind of do that. So even you can use that with him as that example too of like,
Hmm.
you got to find that pivot in there somewhere. You got to find that angle to change. But also, yeah, if you are in certain businesses, have something there, especially if it's a career that's oriented in like sports or entertainment sometimes of like go to other venues and venture off because it helps expand and open new horizons for you. Not only does it give you something to do, it may open other business ventures that they haven't seen before to make that longevity in like financial wise last longer, but also just capitalizing off of what you created from before, like with him and his brother. They're two well-known people, especially his brother, well-known personality. To have somebody like that to bounce off of, and you're related to each other, makes it even easier. And both of them are coming from the same world of playing football and in the NFL. Those are all rarities that everybody doesn't get the um doesn't get the leisure to have. You get what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So
Yeah.
even with that, like you have that pivot coming from that world, but they also have to make it because even with these sports careers, it can only take up 20 to 30 years of your life if you played for that long, and some people even shorter. But
Right.
people forget you got to live after. You know what I mean?
Oh,
You
yeah.
live to be God wants us all. We live a long time. You don't know how long that window is, but you still have a life before and after that. Like it ends at some point in time. There's a point in time where certain these things have a closing door on it, and everybody isn't always prepared for it. So sometimes I believe, yeah, you should.
It's crazy about professional athletes or even college athletes. Like the percentage of going from high school to college is like single digits. The single digits of
Hmm.
athletes that go from high school to college is staggering. And then it's like half
Hmm.
that lesson that we go to professional sports. It's just insane. So
Right.
it's very important to cherish your time playing sports because you realize that you're part of a very small minority of athletes that are good enough to at least compete at a higher level, let alone take a roster spot.
Hmm.
But I think it's also important for us to acknowledge that people, I think, are way more happier when they have options. Because
Right.
I don't know if you remember this, but there was I don't know if you remember the Chris Rock stand up where the context of what Chris Rock was talking about was about relationships, man and a woman, and whether a man should stay with a woman. And he said, like, a man is as faithful as his options. And to me, I started to think about it way more because if you look at it from a financial standpoint in a job like trying in a job hunting standpoint, if you have multiple jobs offering a position for you, that's a great problem to have. You have options. You have, ways to think. Like, okay, this is a good idea, but it's too far of a commute. Well, this is a better job, but the other job has better work hours. I can probably hang out with my friends late after night or help my kids with their homework. And do you think it's and I've also before I ask this question, next one. My mother told me one story about how like some jobs will ask you if you're being interviewed by someone else or if you have anything else outside of the job you're doing, because that also can impact your ability to get a job. So my question to you is that do you think people should always what do you think having options is a good problem to have, or do you think having too many options could be a hindrance in an objective kind of view? Because I understand that having options to you is a good idea, but do you think that can also be a bad thing?
As long as you got the right mindset, focus, and plan to go with it. Because sometimes it can be. I've seen it in instances where it wasn't because people believe they had so much going on at that point in time, and they didn't foresee the future if those plans were going to change by within the next few months. Like a lot of those options weren't going to be there. I'm talking about somebody that had like college offers when it came to playing football. That next year, by the time we got to our senior year, the team was a good position, got changed. All of them were gone, except for like one. They all dried up. So it's like this. Sometimes I see where it can be, but if there's no, the person I know for sure was getting used to it and they didn't have a plan or any
Mhm.
drive to like, okay, how do I continue these offers? Maybe I should stay where I'm at now because of how much more I'm getting offered. You know what I mean? Not able to make that like, okay, this could be a good plan B. I see the future in this. If sometime that does happens and you have to make it a plan B, sometimes you're forced to. It's not always that you have the option to. So in certain instances, yeah, but as long as you have the right mindset, focus, and drive with these options to seek out what you want, because in reality you can have them all, but you have to choose one in certain instances. Not all cases, but if you're talking about being that driven, where we're talking about sports, yeah, colleges you got to choose one, and then one team chooses you, you don't get to do both. You can make options out of your life after that, but in certain cases, it can be a point to where it's like you may be looking at it a little too
Mhm.
much as if someone's how do I say it? Like you're spoiled in a sense, and you're taking that for granted, where you have multiple options, but somebody can only get one and they got to take it. So it depends on the person we're talking about, and if we're getting the specifics, like the type of drive that they have and the mindset that they have.
Yeah, have you ever been in a position where, like, can you name a position? Sorry, a time where you've been like, um, you find yourself where you've had many options and you just feel stuck. I mean, I understand that, like,
Hmm.
college offers can be, a problem, but I'm talking about like maybe like, oh, I applied to like 10 jobs and five gave me an offer. Like, you ever been in that situation yet? Or is it, or do you think or has college like offers, like, applying to college has been like that only time?
Um, if we talking about job offers for specifically me, um, there was a twice.
Oh,
You
really?
made me think about it, but twice, yeah. Leaving college, and this is all around the same job that it happened twice and once. Leaving college, I had been working in a certain office here while I was there as a student. I had talked to them about like, I know you guys have positions open for after in the case that, I don't find anything and I need to come back to the problem. Not a problem at all. We'd love for you to come back in a position. Just, when things happen, if things don't happen, give me a call, let me know. We'll be glad to have you come back. Um, bef- After that had been one that's for later on. During that summer, there were two jobs that I applied to just for the summertime,
Mhm.
to pass the time over till I knew I was going back to that other job. I chose one, which now that I look back on it, it might have been the wrong choice. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But it was a learning lesson to be learned. But at the time, I had those two. And that was probably one of the first times in my life. At the time, I was looking at it more for the dollar amount. The other one, the benefits would have gave me of the job, and it wasn't that huge of a difference. But looking at what my daytime would have been in a career choice I had made shortly thereafter, I should have chose that other one, but I couldn't, you couldn't foresee the future. But yeah, that
Yeah.
was one. And then that fall, when I did go back to the other job, I had applied for another one, just seeing, putting it out there, like see if I can get an extra one. And I got that job too, which it was closer in proximity to home. Now the hours might have not been the same, but I ended up going with the other job. Now the other job ended up benefiting me in another situation of life where I had to make a choice in a plan B. But again, at the time, I had to do what I had to do. So yeah, it can be a problem, but sometimes you got to make priority choices. And at that time, I had to make some priority choices for all of those situations.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I mean, one of the reasons why I'm back in Connecticut is because I'm kind of like made the decision to accept a job and it didn't work out. And because, getting jobs is not a quick process, it takes time. They have to go through your resume. Sometimes they aren't really, and sometimes jobs aren't really hiring. They just have like that there, but
Hmm.
and so when I found myself in a situation where I had to like make a split decision, I'm back home in Connecticut. And like, I think to me, it's one of those things where like, I guess this situation did prove my point is that like if I had, maybe a sure option behind me, I probably would be still there. But then again, like sometimes you gotta make like a gut decision too, sometimes.
That's right.
Yeah, but
That's usually how it goes.
I guess I'm with you in that situation because like to me it's like, man, if I did I really need to take that job? Because I think I kind
Hmm.
of wanted to move away from an overnight position at a hardware store and get a more like on paper reputable position, but it wasn't even in the field that I studied for. It was just a marketing position, and it's like it's kind of one of those things where this actually gives me another question I kind of want to ask you. Do you think sometimes people get too anxious at a young age to chase something that's not chase like the monetary compensation station or or just too active and not really be patient enough? Because that's something that I
Yeah,
think a lot of us go through.
Absolutely, yes. I was saying, yeah, while you were still asking the question, because it's been other positions, like you said, money wise or just life wise, where you find yourself being anxious and you ready to jump on that first opportunity that you get, not
Yeah,
knowing that there might have been another one behind it. I've struck out many a times if we're going to use sports references still. Like I've made decisions where it's like after the fact, I was being impulsive at the time. I didn't, like you said, take the patience to get older, or be wise enough to think it through, or give it if I had enough time at hand to make the decision for whichever one it was. Yeah, I could have been better at it. But absolutely, growing up young because we're still learning. So
right,
we, at certain ages, we don't know any better. We're just making the decision for that. And sometimes it could be what you see in front of you of like how you were taught and how people presented that to you. So it could have, of course, it's going to alter and affect your mindset because that's what you were raised to think until you learn on your own to know better or to see it a different way. Yeah, absolutely. I've made many decisions in life, jobs, relationship decisions, you know what I mean? Regular life stuff of like, all right, I could have thought this through. I didn't have to rush this or just go do this and make this brash decision. Absolutely.
here's another quote, and this comes from an American. It comes from a professor at the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania, and she's also the president of the Society for Judgment and Decision Making. Her name is Catherine Millman. So the quote is, "When people thought about another way to achieve the same high level outcome, they worked less hard and did less well." What's your opinion on that quote?
Read it for me one more time.
All right, so the quote is, when people thought about another way to achieve the same high level outcome, they worked less hard and did less well. End quote.
Hmm.
Do you think there's something to that, or do you think it's more of a her experience kind of like perception of things?
It depends on what that high level goal was. I hate keeping keep on saying that you add in variables because in a sense, depending on what it is, I could see that if it's like if we let's just put it in these terms, if we were in a sense of just getting a college degree, could
Right,
it have been easier majors that you and I could have taken up to obtain that much faster? Yes. So could it make us work a little less harder? Sure, but that again, it depends on what it is. In certain ones, situations, you can't. You have to work hard to get that because that's the only way that you have to do this much amount of work and maybe a set number on certain things. So
right,
again, I can see that if there's an easier path, but it depends on what she's talking about and which high level goal you can get easier to make more money in that sense. Yeah, there's easier jobs or things about the job that make it easier. Like the job I have now pays more in money, but less stress in other areas. So of course,
mhm,
it's an experience I had before. So that's the wisdom coming in. Like this is something I know I can do because it's an industry I've been in. So it's not like I just jumped and was like, it's better money. I'm gonna just go for it because certain times that doesn't always work out. But it depends on what it is and what you're talking about. But it also goes against the saying for
right,
me, what I would ask you, do you believe in working smarter, not harder?
right. I
So that's where I'm like,
I'm always about
go
working
ahead.
harder and harder. Just saying, like you
Hmm.
gotta find what's the most efficient way to accomplish something. And of course, there's many
Right.
different ways you can also, slice an onion. There's many different ways you can also get to a destination via car. But at the end of the day, the goal is to get there and get there the most efficient, time consuming. In a way, it kind of helps the next person out too.
Very true.
I mean, think about it, the comedians from Cat Williams, Steve Harvey's generation, then came up. It was way harder to get noticed back then. Today, you can
Hmm.
just go on your Instagram and find like a comedian doing a bar stand-up routine, and they'll get like
Right.
6,000 views, and that's just like their first, gateway into getting people's attention, and sooner or later, people are gonna start recognizing them.
Very true.
You know what else? Because we mentioned college kids. A lot of college kids, they often come into universities not knowing what they want to do. Oftentimes, athletes don't know what they want to do. They come in undeclared, and sooner or later they have to declare a major. And next thing you know, they take a major they probably wouldn't want to do anyway. And next thing you know, they have a degree, and now it's like, wait, I don't want to be a archaeology major. I don't want to be a biology major. I just took it just so I can get through. I just took it because I was like, society told me it's appropriate. It's told me it's you need to go to college. And again, like we're still developing as a young men and women. I mean, and decisions are have to be made. I mean, do you think that because backup plans do involve people who wanted and also colleges are very expensive too. So I mean,
Very true.
colleges shouldn't be a backup plan. If you're gonna go to college, you gotta go because you want to, and that should be plan A. And whatever you want to do outside that should be the plan B. So I'm talking about
Mhm.
college kids. Do you think that as a plan A, if you're undecided, should you like let your parents know, hey, I'm not committed to this? Because again, it's a lot of money, even for community colleges. I mean, it's still money.
Mhm. That's what I was gonna say. If you want to make that choice,
Right.
do it at the expense of going to community college, unless you came in with scholarships and grants, something to pay for that first year, or else it's going to be on you eventually and your parents if they had to take out loans. But if you want to try it out, just go the cheap route or go the route that fits you best. Always go with the route that okay, like all right, let me kind of, you know what I mean. If I am gonna try this, I'm gonna try it in community college. I'd rather spend, little who knows what it is now because I know it's going up. But at the time I was there, classes they're spending on the classes that are a little less than 1,000 and going to university and you 1,500, 2,000 a class. Like all depends on where you're going and how you're going about it. If you feel like it's for you, try it out. I've seen people.
I'm still here. I'm still here.
Okay, all right. I've seen people go through it and not try it, but it was cheap for us at the time, and we all qualified for like Pell Grants. So it kind of helped with that. But like you said, please be careful and be very thoughtful about it before you do. And that's the advice I'll offer on that one. If you do want to just try out college.
Yeah. What do you think about when in the employment, when you're, job force, when you're applying to
Hmm.
jobs and like you're trying to find and they ask you like, hey, are you interviewing somewhere else or are you like do you have another job or do you have like this and that or what do you feel do you when you hear that do you feel like maybe are they trying to find an excuse not to hire you or do you think they're trying to pull something different because whenever I hear that it's like are you trying do you not want me here or are you just like asking that just as an excuse like what's your opinion on that because I've always thought about like why do you it's like is that part of the job is that a part of the job interviewing process.
Hmm. I think it just depends. Most of the industries when I went in these positions, except for like maybe a few, I could think of one for sure where they asked, but from the way that they presented it, they they were like, "No, we want you for this position, so we want to make sure you can interview as of right now. There's no one else that for sure offered you an interview." They made it but they specified that they asked me that directly of like nobody else offered you an interview, and then they told us after like reason we're asking is because we want to offer you this position to make sure that you're gonna at least take the interview to see because we want you here. So in that aspect, from my personal experience with that one, yeah. Other than that, I've never really had too many other places ask like that. You get what I mean? Maybe current job, if I am working somewhere else, they'll speak on that or like currently got a job, you know, something like that. But again, that's just alluding to, okay, are you working right now or not? Other than that one, when they were like, we're asking because we want you for the job, I've never really had it happen at too many interviews that I went to. They might have just said, we're going to interview other candidates and then let you know, but never the one where, oh, what's your current job situation? You know what I mean? Where it was like, oh, it was something negative. It was more so, no, we want you for the position. Did anybody else offer you a position at any other, place of employment at the time for that industry?
Okay, so before I get into the quick Q&A to end the podcast, because they gave me an alert, got 6 minutes left, so
Oh
um
Lord, all right.
yeah, don't worry, we got time. Um,
Mm-hmm.
as like a final thought, if he had like a young guy, say who's just turning 18 and he's going to college, and they ask you like, should I have a backup plan or should I not have a backup plan? What would you say to them?
Have a backup plan. I've had this talk in real life with family members on the reverse of like, go try it out. And well, if you want to go to certain places because I've been there before, you have help. Now there that was the difference of like, I know a few people to kind of like if you need help in certain areas, but go try if you want to. But if I would tell them to have a backup plan, yeah, always seek something out. We're never saying don't go for your immediate goal. Have a plan, number one, because when you don't plan, I believe in that when you
Right.
kind of plan to fail, you can go for the win, but once things start getting set in place where you might have to change once you get there though, start setting stone a plan. All right, this is what I kind of want to do with this now that I'm here. So set a plan first, but do have a plan B. Reason being is we both could attest to sometimes we graduate, or majority of the time you graduate and you don't end up in the industries a lot of the times that you go for. You may have to make that change to go do something else. And it's not out of not trying, especially in my case. I can't, how many applications we probably filled out to try and go find these places. Me, I went down even exactly.
300. I know it's 300.
I couldn't even tell you. I know it's in the hundreds, but I couldn't count. But I went down to like final interviews and like it discouraged me. But when I knew I had with those other skill sets that I had, I knew there was other things I could apply for. And whenever I went to like these job sites at Indeed, I applied all skills that I had in all work industries that I did. You go to look at my resume, I've had some people may look at it as bad, but I have, versatile. I've worked at many different jobs. So there's nothing wrong with having a backup plan. I would always tell somebody that, in that aspect of yes, have a backup plan because you never could know what happened. And once you're set in stone, maybe in one place or you get certain things going, you can always start going to the other one too. You may
Right.
want to, work on this for a little while, keep that there, and then once you get going good, all right, now start working on this too. When you know you're set in stone, you're used to this, you know, where you're at, and you got a routine set. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with having a backup plan.
What I would say is never limit yourself. I would say this because like
Hmm.
never if you're like a painter or an artist, never ignore any corner of the canvas.
Mm,
Paint that full picture. I mean, I mean, in my opinion, we weren't born just to do one thing.
right,
So if you are feeling like you can build a house, hey, just build a shed to start out, or just build something. What's the worst that can happen? It won't happen. At least you have a hobby. At least you have a hobby. Because
right.
I mean, I love doing videography, podcasting, all that stuff. I also like writing screenplays. I
Hmm.
also like I also still like going to the gym and working out. I'm not a bodybuilder, but I like working out. So just keep yourself active and doing many different things. You never know when one can lead to another, can lead you right back to where you want to do. You just never know. It's life is crazy.
Absolutely.
This has been Podcast Island episode number 21. Topic: should you have a backup plan? This is Trinity Collins along with my guest Daryl Hall. Podcast Island covers sports, music, film, thought-provoking topics, fun topics, and sit-down interviews. This podcast can be viewed only on YouTube at the One Man Island Productions YouTube channel. Clips of the podcast can be viewed on Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts. Uh, thank Daryl Hall. Thank you for joining me on this another thought-provoking discussion.
Thank you, brother man, for having me. I always appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you guys, and we'll see you guys in the future.